David Zuckerman with 17 of 247 towns reporting. David Zuckerman is leading 55% to 37, leading Thomas Renner of Winooski. Zuckerman, of course, is the incumbent. Thomas Renner. David Zuckerman with 17 of 247 towns reporting. So why is it talking to me, Paul?
Is that my computer that's doing that? Oh, there it is.
Oh, you know what? It's probably mine.
No, it's me. I fixed
Actually,
it.
It sort of sounds like it's mine.
It was. We were having some audio issues, and I think I
guess we are. Let's see.
It was both of us now.
I just hit the mute button.
Sorry about that, everybody. There was a little bit of an audio issue to start the show.
Don't apologize.
Well,
you can if you want.
I apologize. That was my fault. Right. I know that there was something I did.
Not really. It was mine too. But the point is, hey, this is live. Yes, with 17 towns reporting, 1,500 votes for David Zuckerman, 1,000 for Thomas Renner, 55% to 38% for Thomas Renner. Thomas Renner is the deputy mayor of Winooski and employee of Becca Ballot on her staff, not campaign staff, her staff as a congressperson. And yes, Esther Charleston leading Peter Duvall in the governor's race. In the Republican lieutenant governor's race, we have, again, folks, this is just now 25 towns of 247, 1,200 votes for John Rogers, 871 votes for Greg Thayer. John Rogers, of course, is the former Democrat state senator and representative from the Northeast Kingdom. Greg Thayer is a Rutland area businessman and longtime conservative Republican activist. John Rogers has the endorsement of Phil Scott. Greg Thayer has a lot of support among the more social conservative wing, perhaps you might say, to some degree, the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. And right now, John Rogers, 54%, and Greg Thayer, 39 to 39% of the vote.
I have their images pulled up here, folks. On the left is Gregory Thayer, and on the right is John Rogers. Just so everybody knows, I wanted to put that out there because I do have some of the names here that we'll pull up tonight. I have their names there below them and their logos, so you can get an idea who we're talking about. But I could not find these two and their logos. John Rogers and Greg Thayer. So we have them.
You tell me what faces are you looking at, and what do you want results for?
Well, let's see. What have you heard on Sam Douglas, who is on the left?
Oh, this is the Orleans Senate race, the GOP primary for Orleans Senate. Yeah.
And Conrad Bellavance, of course.
Let us check this out.
And I'm hoping to get either Sam or him to call in. I have talked a little bit with Sam about it, so if he's out there listening, we'd love to have you call in. And
this is with under 100 votes cast for each of them. 3 of 20 towns reporting. So, folks, you do realize preliminary doesn't begin to describe where this is at, all right? But at this point, Amy Conrad Bellavance, who's a businessman from, I think, Newport, has 52%. Sam Douglas has 61 votes and 41%. And, of course, just so everyone knows, the polls have closed, and there's no voting out in California where people are still voting. So it's really okay that we're giving out all of these numbers. So, yes, very, very early on, Conrad Bellavance leading Sam Douglas, 52 to 41%. What else do you want to know, Paul? What else you got there?
Let's talk a little bit about the lieutenant governor's race on the other side, on the Democratic ballot.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I do have their logos pulled up. So you have David Zuckerman, of course, who is currently your lieutenant governor, and he is the progressive Democratic incumbent, and he's facing Thomas Renner, who is, I believe you said deputy mayor?
Right.
Okay, so you have talked a little bit about him, but these are their photos here, folks.
So now, with 25 towns reporting, Dave Zuckerman is leading 57%. to Thomas Renner's 36%. Towns, and none of those, by the way, except perhaps one. Yes, Essex Town in Chittenden County has reported. And other than that, though, nowhere in Chittenden County. What that also tells us, folks, that those haven't counted, is that one of the really big Senate races we're watching is the Democratic primary in Chittenden Central. That's the one that has 3 incumbents, Tanya Vyhovsky, Martine Gulick, and Senate Pro Tem Phil Baruth, all incumbents, Democrats, being challenged by former NBC5 anchor Stu Ledbetter. And Stu out fundraised. Led had spending a lot. And I talked to him this afternoon. He's going to be calling in, or yes, he'll be calling us sometime between 8:30 and 9 tonight. And I asked him, so I think Stu Ledbetter, this is his first election, but I think he feels pretty good about this. And let's see what his numbers are. In the Senate, we have, okay, hold on.
I do have somebody asking, where are you guys getting the stats from?
Yes.
Guy, I know you mentioned it,
Yes.
but definitely we want
Here's what you do, folks. First of all, I'm going to give you the numbers first. This is a 3-seat district, okay? And with 1 town of 5 reporting, and that's Essex Town, which is Tanya Vyhovsky's hometown. She has 22%. Stuart Ledbetter has 21%. Phil Baruth, 20%. And Martine LaRocque Gulick, 19%. So obviously, very close there. Long way to go tonight. A lot of people think that race in particular, that might not be known until pretty late, how that all sugars out. But so we'll be really interested to talk to Stu Ledbetter around 8:30 or so. Oh, you asked me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what you want to do is go to your Google browser or whatever and put in Vermont Secretary of State, or just type in sos.vermont.gov. Okay. And you'll get Secretary of State. You'll want to look at elections and the little subtab elections. And then under election results, you'll see a little blue box that says 2024 presidential primary election results. It's not a presidential primary, but that is the box you want. Okay, so just click on that, and you will then, that will pop up, and you will then be able to navigate within that box which race, which party, statewide, legislative, House, Senate. Okay, and so really that's where we're getting most of our stuff.
You know, we talked a little bit about before the show being able to pull up images.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna be able to do it, guys. So let's
Cool.
try it right now. This is the results of the Democratic primary in Chittenden Central for state Senate. So let's see if
I wouldn't say the results.
Well,
I'd
not
say
the
very, very, very first.
That's right.
As it happens. Yeah.
So I have it shown here. I'm going to blow it up a little bit, folks. This seems to be working. Let me know what it looks like on your end. Putting it right over Guy. I know. Don't worry. I know it's terrible. I'll get it taken down. Don't worry.
Oh, I see that. Hey, good job there, Paul.
Thank you.
All right.
So if you, well, let's see.
You can, it's okay to put over my face.
Okay, just quickly here, folks. If you can see it, let me know in the comments. It would be great. But these are the, what would you say, Guy? You said preliminary results so far.
Oh, ridiculously preliminary. Yes.
Okay.
It's so early on. Chittenden County, I believe it's Burlington in particular, often takes a long time. Burlington and Colchester seems to me historically, for whatever reason, maybe, I don't know why, but they take a long time. And what you see here, though, in the very early going, is a pretty close 4-person race for 3 seats. And that could be. So, Let's see what other kind of races we have going on here. This is so much fun. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Addison. Oh, yes. Well, now this is very interesting. In Addison County, Caleb Elder, the rather independent-minded House member from Starksboro, guy who made quite a bit of noise over them not doing enough about housing the last year or two, he decided he was going to take on 2 Democratic incumbents. Boy, you do not do that. That is, you can, but it sort of goes against the culture of the Vermont Democratic Party to take on incumbents. And at the moment, with 2 towns reporting, Ruth Hardy has 43%, Chris Bray 33%, and Caleb Elder 20%. So at the moment, very, very, very early on, and that could change with 1 or 2 towns reporting. Ruth, the incumbents are doing well in Addison County.
Okay, we do have some comments here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We answered a question where you can see that people are making sure they don't want it to come from the mainstream news source. They want to get it straight from Secretary of State's website. That's what they're talking a little bit.
Yep.
Kevin Ryan writes, "Guy, you're throwing off the California vote." Well, and Lambert Solly, he writes in, "We haven't heard from you for a while, Bert." He says, "Go John Rogers, get her done." And
so in the early going, Bert, so far he is. In fact, let's look at his most recent. Since you brought him up, Bert, let's look at his most recent numbers. Go to the statewide race. This is real easy, folks. Just pull up the page, and you can do this all probably faster than I can. The Republic. There we go. John Rogers with 30 of 247 towns reporting has 54%. Greg Thayer, 38%. That, for what it's worth, has been more or less the fairly steady ever since it started. But that again, that's only 2,200 votes cast so far, and they're spread throughout small towns in Vermont. You don't really see much in the way of cities there reporting. In Morristown, John Rogers doing very well, 67%. Brandon, Greg Thayer, Brandon being a Rutland County town, Greg Thayer is doing quite well. Also in Leicester, which is just right over the border. In Paulet, another, is Paulet in Rutland? Yeah, I believe Paulet is Rutland County. It's right on the border. He's got 59%, Greg Thayer does. So regionally, Greg Thayer is doing well. Outside of Rutland County so far, he did well in he's doing well in Woodstock. Let's see. Yeah, basically, the big picture is so far Greg Thayer is doing very well in Rutland County. John Rogers, most other places, seems to be ahead. Okay, take that for what it's worth, with 30 towns reporting. And let's go over to the Democrats for Lieutenant Governor. David Zuckerman, 57. Thomas Renner, 35. In Essex Town, David Zuckerman with 52%. And yes, so far in every town, that rough percentage of 1.5 to 2 to 1 is holding rather in every town. That's basically what is happening, give or take a few percentage points for David Zuckerman. So with only 30 towns reporting, but every town going roughly 55 to 30% more or less for David Zuckerman, that's a perhaps an encouraging sign for Zuckerman supporters. Okay. What else do we have that you want me to? What other pictures do you have, Paul?
Well, I have the Andrea Murray for state senate. I believe she's a Republican primary.
Yes.
Caledonia County?
Nope. Andrea Murray is. This is a fascinating one, folks. This is Windsor County, and in Windsor County is deep blue. The three incumbent senators, current senators, Allison Clarkson, Rebecca White, Dick McCormick. Allison Clarkson and Rebecca White are running again, but Dick McCormick, longtime senator, decided, okay, I'm out, so he's not running anymore, which maybe leaves the door open a bit. I think some Republicans think. And so while there are 5 Democrats running for those 3 seats, 5 Democrats running for those 3 seats, there are actually 4 Republicans running for those 3 seats. So a contested primary in both parties in Windsor County. And leading in Windsor County, Andrea Murray, with only one town reporting, okay? So grain of salt there, of course. It's just so early on. Andrea Murray has 20% of the votes, Jonathan Gleason 18, Jack Williams 18, Robert Rulin 12% of the vote. Now that was an interesting one, Paul. I don't know if you remember, but there was a huge kerfluffle last year with the Windsor County GOP committee.
That's right.
Basically throwing off the chair, John McGovern, who was the antithesis of a Trump supporter, a real vocal opponent of, actually gave some money to some of his Democratic people running against his candidates in Senate elections. And the Murrays, August Murray, Andrea's husband, and Andrea kind of led the charge to reorganize the GOP committee down there. And it was just this stark example of what you might call the MAGA wing saying, no, this is how we want Republicans to be in Vermont. And I can't really speak for Jonathan Gleason, Jack Williams, or Robert Rulin. I do know that the Murrays fairly strongly identified with the sort of conservative MAGA wing of the party. So we'll see how that plays out, not only eventually, of course, in the general election, but also in the primary. We'll see how strong their support is in rank-and-file Republican voters in Windsor County.
So a couple things going on here. I just want to inform folks. I have Bill Huff. He's going to call in just a moment here to give us maybe a little bit of an update down in Bradford. He's not exactly sure what's going on as of right now, but he does want to give us an update on a few things. It's sounding like we're going to have John Rogers around 8:45. And I know you said we're going to have Stuart Ledbetter at 8:30.
Yeah, 8:30. He's going to call in between 8:30 and 9. Okay,
and we're watching a few of the local races too. The very local here in Northfield. Kenny Goslant is actually even thinking about stopping by the studio and joining us for part of the end of the show. So I said he's welcome to do that if he wants to. Otherwise, he's going to call in. And I'm also maybe going to hear from Elizabeth Brown, who's running up in Waterbury for the state representative seat.
I hope she calls in. Let's see how she's doing, okay?
Well, she's thinking. Well, I just talked with her quickly over text. She said she has not seen any results yet. Not sure exactly.
That's the Caledonia, Washington seat.
I believe it's the.
No, it's not Caledonia.
It's not. It's Chittenden, Washington. Yes. So she's in Waterbury, Bolton, Beals Gore. I could be wrong. I don't want to say in the wrong towns. That being said, so she's thinking about calling. She's in the Democratic primary. Hoping to hear from her. She's running against Tom Stevens and Teresa Wood, who I believe are both committee chairs in the State House. So I don't know the exact committee. So that's a big race that people are watching, a contested primary. So we're hoping to hear from all these folks. And looks like I just missed a phone call from Bill Huff, so I'm going to see if I can get him on the line real quick.
Try again, Bill.
Try again, Bill. Sorry. See if I can call him myself. This is like when they do the... Come on now.
Washington Chittenden. That's the name of that district.
Bill, can you hear us? Bill, can you hear us all right?
Yep. How about...
No results yet.
Oh, I lost you again, Bill. Are you still there? Oh, boy. We had you for a second. Can you hear us now, Bill?
I can hear you guys just fine. You might want to, if you can't hear me, maybe we can try the house phone.
No, we got you now. It was a connection issue.
All right, good enough.
Well, thanks for calling in, and thanks for joining us. What's going on down in Bradford?
Well, in Thetford, I'm in Thetford. Bradford is part of Orange County, so I'm just trying to find some results. And I tell you, I don't know if there's been a single town yet in Orange County that's reported for anything.
Well, let's see. There's Groton. That's Caledonia, right?
Right. So I can tell you that
you are correct, sir. Nothing in Orange County has shown.
Right. So, but I did spend some time at the polls today. I spent the first hour as polls opened in Stratford, and then a couple hours in Thetford, and the last 3 hours this afternoon I was in Thetford. And anecdotally, I can tell you what appeared to be the case. One is extremely light turnout, and I think that'll be verified easily. I mean, the towns that have reported, I was on the Secretary of State's website just a couple of minutes ago. I think I saw some towns as low as 8%, 6, 7, 8%, single digits. Some of the towns with the greatest turnout that have reported were only a dozen, 15. I think there was one or two, maybe 16 or 18%. But the other thing that popped out to me was the disparity between Republicans and Democrats. I think it's almost 2-1, which I guess isn't surprising in the state of Vermont. But again, anecdotally, that's what I saw, particularly here in Thetford. I mean, I've lived here for 40 years. I know a lot of the people that are here. And there are just very, very few that I knew to be, that would lean conservative that showed up today. And I got an idea that'll probably be borne out statewide as well.
Now, I'm curious, do you think some of that has to do with interest in statewide races? I mean, maybe in the lieutenant governor's race, or is that just... Guess what? There's more Democrats, so more of them showed up.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, Guy. Obviously there's probably more Democrats than there are Republicans in the state, but I think it's pretty typical for those that lean left to vote regardless of what the races actually are, or whether they're competitive or not. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of conservatives that will just sit an election out. Unless there's something that drives them to the polls, and I don't think that's the case with a lot of people on the Democratic progressive side. They vote regardless.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But the low turn.
I'm curious. In this race, what race, if any, would drive conservatives to the polls?
Well, if anything, one of the only contested races, well, I can speak for Orange County, I guess. There were two contested races on the ballot, and one was lieutenant governor. And, I think that'll probably bring some people out, some people that follow politics. That's an interesting race for sure, the race between John Rogers and Greg Thayer. And the other one, Thetford, oddly enough, is actually part of the Windsor County Senate district after the redistricting, even though it's in Orange County.
Is that right?
And there are 4 Republicans running for a 3-seat Senate district. So again, anybody that follows politics closely, that would be a race of interest to them. But if it's not a governor's race or a presidential race or a federal, state, or rep race, I think Republicans, it's tough to get them energized into the polls.
Mm-hmm. So we do have a couple Orange County towns now, and I can tell you, Bill, and I'd love to get your feedback on this, is in West Fairleigh and in Tunbridge. In West Fairleigh, you have John Rogers with 56%, Greg Thayer 32%. Again, small numbers of votes. We're talking, 22 votes, I think, total in that town. And then in Tunbridge, 62% Rogers, 35% Greg Thayer. So you see a roughly, 60-35 split on Rogers and Thayer. And so far in Orange County, and what do you make of that?
Well, I can't say that it's unexpected, and I think a lot of it has to do with name recognition, frankly. Greg has made a tremendous effort all over the state. He's, the Energizer Bunny when it comes to showing up in parades and fairs and, door-to-door, that sort of thing. But it's hard to compete with somebody like John Rogers that has served not only in the House for a number of years, but in the Senate for a number of years. John, in particular, kind of made himself well known when Governor Scott passed or introduced the gun legislation. John, even though he was a Democrat, stood on the steps of the State House arm in arm with sportsmen against that particular bill. And that enamored himself widespread among sportsmen's groups. And I think that was, gave him a lot of name recognition that perhaps Greg doesn't have. So it's, like I said, it's not unexpected, I guess, and I think a lot of it is due to name recognition, the fact that he served before.
Huh. So, Bill, I'm seeing something very interesting in these vote totals, that southern and central Vermont, as in everything above that highway that goes through below that highway that goes through Killington, Route 4? Is that what that is?
Route 4. Yeah, Route 4, the Mason-Dixon line of Vermont.
Right. Well, Greg Thayer's pretty popular below, and not just in Rutland County, but elsewhere. He does better than John Rogers. Most
in
of
the southern part of the state.
It's the other way around.
So you're saying Greg does better in the southern part of the state?
Yeah, that's roughly speaking with the towns we have reporting so far. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, well, and I think that might be expected. John, of course, lives in Glover, would be better known in the northern part of the state, and Greg, of course, lives in Rutland, farther south, right on that Mason-Dixon line, and he's pretty well known. Greg is amongst Republican circles, those few Republicans that live below Route 4, and the people that live south of Route 4 may not be nearly as familiar with the name John Rogers as those that live particularly in the Northeast Kingdom or up this way.
Yeah, makes sense. Speaking of,
I think so.
Go ahead.
No, I think it does make a lot of sense. The numbers are kind of verifying, I think, what.
Oh, still there, Bill? Uh-oh. I lost Bill.
Maybe another technical difficulty. Well, Bill, if you want to call back in, feel free.
He's still on the line.
Oh,
it's just a
connection
issue. I'm not sure what's going on here.
All right. Well, until you get him back, I'll give it some more.
Oh, Bill, we can hear you. Sorry about that.
Okay. No. I'm still here.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say that'll actually prove interesting over the course of the night, and because Greg would appear he might do better in the southern part of the state than John in the north, so it actually could depend a lot on turnout. If people below Route 4 turn out in better numbers on the Republican ticket than they do to the north, it could be a lot tighter race than we might expect.
So far, what we're looking at, just so you know, the latest totals for Lieutenant Governor are John Rogers, 54%, Greg Thayer, 38%, with 84 of 247 towns reporting.
So about a third of the towns have reported, and I'm kind of looking at a map, and it almost seems like there might be more towns north of Route 4 that have reported than to the south. So it's possible that this race could actually tighten up over the course of the night.
It could. Nothing out of Chittenden County except Charlotte, where John Rogers is ahead. Hey, Bill. We have a candidate from Orleans County on the phone, so I want to thank you very much for calling in, giving us your insight. And now we are going to go to Sam Douglas.
Sam is going to join us in just a second here. I just let him know to give us the call.
Sure. I will call up his numbers so we can speak to them. By the way, just so really quickly, in Addison County, there's also, not only in the Democrats running a primary, but the Republican Senate district has one. And at the moment, Steve Heffernan is leading 46% to Lendl James Cochran 20% and Leslie Bienvenu 16%, with 5 of 25 towns reporting. But let's go over quickly to Orleans, and Sam Douglas is killing it.
Well,
Sam, do we have you?
Sam, can you hear us? I actually have Bill and Sam, I believe, on the phone. So if we can keep Bill on if he wants to stay on. But
you can do that, huh?
But Sam, can you hear us? Are you there, Sam? Hold on a second. Let's see if we can figure this out.
I can hear you. Nope.
Oh, we had you for a second. Hold on.
Hold on, Sam.
I can hear
in there.
Hold on one second. My goodness. Something wrong with my connection here, folks. I apologize.
So while Paul's doing that, Sam Douglas has, with 9 of 20 towns reporting, has 53% of the vote. Amy Conrad Bellavance, 39%. Sam, do we have you? Okay. Sam has 310 votes to Amy Conrad and Bellavance, 228. This is Sam's second run. He ran 2 years ago.
I am so sorry. You were breaking up heavily, and I'm having troubles understanding you.
Can you hear us?
Is it any better now, Sam?
Is it any better now? Can you hear us at all?
I can hear Paul a lot lot better.
Okay.
For some reason.
Well, maybe it's, I don't know. That's kind of strange.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Paul. Take it away.
There you are. There you are. Perfect.
See?
Right there. Perfect.
We knew there was going to be some technical difficulties involved in what we were trying to do here. So
Sam, we can hear you just fine. Tell me, right now, with 9 towns reporting, 53%, how do you think it's going?
Well, I'm relatively confident. I ran a really good race, at least from my perspective and the perspective of many of the people that I spoke to. I knocked 6,349 doors last time I ran for this seat, and I really think that's going to give you an edge. And that doesn't even include the doors that I knocked this time. I worked really hard for this. I spent 5 hours a day at the minimum working on this, contacting people that I'd never spoken to before. And, I think I can speak for the people that are on my email list. They can see the updates that I've been giving them, all the events that I've been going to, the public events, private events, and just making sure that I'm out there in the community. So I really think that's going to be really going to make strides for me. I worry about this race. I know for sure that I have what it takes to take on Catherine Sims in the general. So I'm pushing super hard, and I'm hoping this will come out with a victory in my favor, Paul. So and Guy. So thank you very much for having me on. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer those. If you have any burning insights.
So Catherine Sims has raised an awful lot of money. She has Bobby Starr's backing. The incumbent Democrat / sort of Republican Senator Robert Starr, who's retired, has his endorsement. She is, well, anyway, how do you think you stand up against her? She's a fairly formidable candidate, I think most people would say.
Oh, absolutely. So the only good thing I will ever say about Catherine Sims is that she's an excellent candidate, and she's incredibly intelligent. I know she's intelligent. However, that does not come out in voting records, unfortunately. What I will say is, I almost beat Bobby Starr last time I ran, and I'm relatively confident that I can take the seat if I make it past tonight. Catherine Sims has raised a considerable amount of money. That is absolutely true, but I think the voters of Orleans County are going to see that, and I think that's honestly going to play to her detriment. You can send out as many mailers as you want, and you can put as many digital ads on Facebook as you want, but for your average voter in Orleans County who makes $32,000 a year, I only make, I think, about $37,000 a year. When you're raising $50,000 to $100,000, it makes you look at your own bank account, and it makes you consider, why is this person spending so much money, way more money than I make in a year, on this campaign? This person says she wants to help out the county, and yet there's just so much money flowing through the air, and I see a lot of it coming out of Chittenden County, and I think the voters of Orleans County are going to see that. And I also know that I have, with my volunteer army that I have waiting in the wings right now, I think that I can take this a lot further past the primary, and I think that, of course, she's a very formidable candidate. She graduated through the Emerge program. With my considerable campaigning skills, as Paul knows very well, I think I can definitely match her tit for tat, and I think that I can out-knock her on doors 3 or 4 to 1. So I'm pretty confident against her in the general.
You mentioned her record. What is it about her record, maybe, that is vulnerable? Her voting record.
Well, she, as far as my memory can serve, after a long day of campaigning, when I'm a little bit burnt at both ends, you'll have to forgive me.
Sorry.
She voted to double her own salary when the voters of Orleans County can't eat, heat, or house themselves. She voted for the clean heat standard. She voted for at least S5, Act 18. She voted for so many of the bills that Orleans County is currently struggling over, that's putting so many of our voters at a disadvantage. And despite what she says about being a moderate, that's just not the case. I think so many people in Orleans County completely see that she has never been a moderate. Maybe on some issues, I don't know, but for the majority of the time, she votes with the party, and whenever she votes against the party, it's always in cases where they're not concerned about the outcome of the vote. They know the vote is going to go in their direction.
Sam, I want to ask quickly, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that she's not even, well, I'm not going to say not even, but she's not from Orleans County, or is the seat that she's held before, has she moved around? Is that something I've heard before, or am I making this up? Is that true, or?
Yeah, so the things that I've heard about, I've known her for a very long time. She's lived in multiple different towns around the area, around the Northeast Kingdom, and she's run for office in several of them. And before finally being able to find an area that was suitable for her to win, and now that being Craftsbury. She's originally from Massachusetts, and now don't get me wrong. Again, she's a very intelligent individual, and I think she's going to run her campaign extremely well. But I think a lot of people up here in Orleans County, we don't really like people coming up and moving around and running for office. We like people that are a little closer to home, that have known how it is to grow up in the Northeast Kingdom, how it is to grow up never filling up your gas tank, how it is to struggle to buy groceries, how it is to go bag a buck to be able to fill your freezer. So
yeah, no,
none of those things, she can't relate to those things.
Well, and that's just it. The reason I ask is because that is something that I've heard, and it does seem to be a common theme in Vermont. I'm sure this is a common theme elsewhere too, but people will kind of bounce around with political ambitions and try to find themselves in a position, and maybe even use that position to springboard for higher positions. And how committed, first of all, are you to the Orleans County, and how committed do you think she is?
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul. I was born in Orleans County. I was raised in Orleans County, and I certainly hope that I will die in Orleans County. And, she did bounce around from town to town, and she finally found an area where she was able to win a seat in the House. And what I will say for her, she is a good communicator, and she sends out email lists, and she keeps people very informed of what she's doing, whether that's for spreading her name or just keeping people informed. But you can ask most of the people around here. You can certainly ask a lot of the legislators, and I think you'll definitely get the word.
Yeah,
that she is looking for higher office. She is looking to run for governor. She's looking to run for Congress.
Yeah,
and I don't blame somebody for having ambitions. I have ambitions myself. I want to raise a family. I want to have some, I currently live in I live on a quarter acre, and someday I want to have some dairy cows, and I want a small barn where I can raise them just like my grandfather did. So right now where I am, I can't do that, but those are my ambitions.
Sure.
And I want to stay in Orleans County. And of course, I'm saying this from the relative comfort and safety of 2024. I don't know what the future will bring. If I make it past November, make it past tonight, for all I know, 20 years from now, I might be getting tapped to run for governor. I certainly hope not, but that might come in 20, 30 years from now.
Right. We never know. Hey,
you never know. Exactly.
That's right.
You never know.
That's right.
But right now, I do not. I never grew up with political ambitions. I never did. Okay. It was the furthest thing from my mind.
Okay. Well, Sam.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you very much for coming on, and we will be keeping people apprised on how the race progresses through the night. And right now I want to read off some other results. Well, they're almost to the point of being results. They're at least almost halfway there, with 116 towns reporting of 247. Statewide, in the Democratic race, the race for the Democratic nomination for governor, Esther Charleston, the DEI advocate from Middlebury, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate from Middlebury, has 46% of the vote. Peter Duvall, a climate change activist, has about 20% of the vote. He also ran as a Republican a few years ago, and that's one of the things, this is interesting, Paul, that's going on in this race, is that there are some folks who have run as Republicans in the past who are running in Democratic primaries. There are at least two, and I want to point them out to you, if I can find them. Let's see.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder why they're doing that, Guy.
Well, I think that's a good question. In one case, it's not exactly a deep blue. It's really sort of a purple one, and I'm trying to find it's the Caledonia. Caledonia Essex. That's the one. Okay, I'm gonna look it up right now.
Well, Guy, while you're doing that, I do have a report from Ludlow. This is from Stu Lindbergh. He writes, let's see here. Great night for Republicans. The first time in Ludlow. More Republican ballots than Democrat. Total votes are 114, D 92.
That's very interesting.
That is very interesting.
In Ludlow. Huh.
That sounds like somebody's been doing some groundwork in Ludlow. I wonder if that was used to. BT House, you have Kevin Winter with 102 votes, and Adrienne Raymond with 75. And so Windsor Senate, Jonathan Gleason, 87. Allison Clarkson, 68. Rob Ruin, 70. Becca White, 67. Andrea, so this is the Republican primary now. Andrea Murray, 46. Joe Major, 48. Jack Williams, 41.
Who's number one?
It looks like Joe Major is as of. So I don't know if these are the final results for the town of Ludlow, but I assume so.
Could be
small turnout.
Joe Major, interesting guy. He's Army veteran, African American, runs the aquatic center, like the pool in the White River area. And when Dick McCormick decided not to run, he pretty quickly got into the race. So I think there's a pretty decent chance that he ends up with the third nomination in Windsor County. Now, I was talking about Republicans, people who in the past had run as Republicans running as Democrats. One of those races is in the Caledonia-Essex seat, where Scott Campbell, who is the incumbent in one of the incumbents in that St. Johnsbury and parts of Essex County. He's the incumbent, and Frank Emsel, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he in the past had run as a Republican, but decided to run as a Democrat this year. I think he said in his social media, basically, I'm just trying something new. And right now, Scott Campbell has 45% with 2 or 3 towns reporting. Frank Emsel with 27% and a rather large 28% of blank votes. So what that's all about, I don't know.
Guy, we do have Mike Ballowski on the line. Mike is joining us. Mike, where are you calling us from? Can you hear us all right?
Yeah, I'm calling from under a pink and blue sky.
Okay.
So it's really nice out here.
You from Plainfield?
I'm calling from Plainfield.
Great. So those of you who don't know, Mike Ballowski is Vermont Daily Chronicle reporter, veteran reporter, used to write for the Hartford Gazette and then for True North, and he will be doing the coverage tomorrow on the Windsor County Senate races. We'll be working on those. So, Mike, have you been looking at the results?
No, just listening in. I've been listening to the results as you report them. But I just had some thoughts based on the conversations that you've had for the last 20 minutes or so, if I may chime in. Was it Bill Huff, I think, who called in about he was discussing low turnout?
Yes.
Okay, so I had some thoughts about that, if I may share. So there was a discussion between Kurt Wright, the former legislator and current radio talk show host, The Morning Drive up in Burlington, and he had Greg Thayer on, who we were just talking about. And they brought up an interesting point about the Vermont elections that I had never thought about before that could play into this low turnout. In fact, I think it may well play into the low turnout. The theory that they offered this morning on the radio was that there could be confusion because we have 2 different sets of election rules for the primary and the general. And let me explain. So we get the universal mail-in ballots for the general. That means everybody's getting their ballots mailed in the mail, which, as Kurt pointed out in the show, has its own litany of problems that could be warranted. A whole other discussion, but for purposes of this call, keep it to. I think they thought it was confusing voters because in the primary Vermont election, you do not get ballots in the mail. And if you can see where I'm going with this, if you're a casual voter who doesn't follow all the rules and intricacies of a Vermont election, as we do, you might just assume that there's not an election or that you weren't supposed to show up, or who knows what you might assume. But both of these men this morning seem to think, and I tend to agree with them, that could be confusing for people. Did anyone have any thoughts on that?
Because they didn't get a mail-in vote?
Because you're getting the ballots in the mail in November, so people are like, okay, well, now it's time to vote. But in the summer, you do not get them unless you request them.
Right.
And I'm not advocating that we make it all universal ballot, and I don't think Kurt or Greg were either. But they were just simply pointing out that this could be a confusing point to voters who are maybe used to voting by the mail now, since that seems to be a trend.
Right.
And they're not getting ballots in the mail this time, but they are getting it in November. So that's one idea, and I have a few other ideas on why this could be. All these ideas are in the article that I wrote today on on Dr. Douglas Frank, who's coming to, I think, Middlebury this weekend to talk about election integrity, which brings up my next point. Rasmussen, the pollster company, and this is like a 1.5 year old stat, so I would think you'd have to assume this number is bigger than I'm reporting it now. But 60% of all voters in the country, this is not unique, this is not a Vermont number, this is a USA number, officially suspect election fraud in federal elections. It doesn't necessarily mean they think 2020 was stolen or not. That's a separate poll and separate number, which is still very high. But 60%, and I think that number becomes much higher when you break it down by party. It's at least like 75 to 80% Republican.
Okay. Hey, Mike.
We have a big result. I want to air out here.
Sure. Go ahead.
This is WCX reporting this 13 minutes ago. So take it however you will, folks. I know some of you said we don't want mainstream sources. Well, WCAX saying Rogers, a former Democrat. Some of them are saying that they have called the race for Rogers as of right now. I have that.
With only a third reported. That's a little.
Let's check funny. That out.
Yeah, well, that's big siege.
From that, 1/3 reported. I heard you say a moment ago about 1/3 of the counties or towns reported.
Here's the latest. I'm looking at it right now on the website. Of 247 towns, 131 have reported. So that's 55%. And
so
John Rogers, that's right. John Rogers has 55%. Greg Thayer, they just glitched on me a second ago. We'll take another look. Yes, has 37%. So
that is a strong
basically an 18% lead with 142 towns now reporting. So
no, that is a strong case. I don't know if they should be calling it yet, but I can see that being a strong case.
I will say that Burlington has not reported, neither has Colchester. There are still a lot of large communities that haven't gone. However, we were talking with Bill Huff, and we were both noting that Greg Thayer does awfully well below Route 4.
And then a lot of them haven't reported yet.
Actually, they have. They have.
Oh, they have now.
That is a relatively dense reporting area. So, I mean, I would say I wouldn't really call it, but one could understand.
It's looking like when the Red Sox are down like 4 runs and it's like the 8th inning or something like that.
You a Yankee fan, Mike?
No, not a Yankee fan.
You know your team well. It's true. It's true.
Right. Yeah. No, that does look like a strong case, Rogers. And I agree with Huff's assessment about the name recognition. I think that's probably accurate. I do remember when Rogers really made a name for himself when he was starting with some of what his party was doing. I just wanted to share a few more quick points about the election turnout stuff. Just theories, really. I mean, of why this might be happening. I mentioned nationwide, again, not specific to Vermont. I'm sure these numbers are different for Vermont. But in any case, nationwide, you have officially a majority of the public questioning whether our federal elections, and this is not a federal election either, so I'm just merely making the point that elections in general throughout the nation are starting to be questioned more and more. And that is the backdrop that we're in. So when I hear people, and as Bill Huff said, I think one voter said, my vote doesn't count, or maybe it was one of you two, I forgot, but somebody said they talked to a voter and they said, well, my vote just doesn't count. And I think there is a lot of that going on, especially for Republicans in Vermont who are familiar with the election systems and not impressed with the integrity or alleged integrity of it.
That is a real concern. It's almost like whoever loses the election now doubts election integrity, and I hope there's a fix for that, because it's no good.
It's a catch-22, because you don't want to tell people not to vote, of course, but at the same time, you don't want to tell people to vote and say, yes, your vote will definitely count with these rules in place that have some holes in them.
Right.
So it's kind of like darned if you do or darned if you don't kind of thing.
Okay, well, Mike, thanks very much for calling in and giving us, because, I'm really glad you brought this up, because we've just been talking results, and not so much stepping back and saying, hey, how was the turnout? And why was it the way it was? And that sort of thing. So we really appreciate that.
I do have one quick observation for my voting today. I went in to vote, I would like to think more than 10 to 15% of us did, although it sounds like that's what we're dealing with. I did hear one of the staff at my town clerk's office say, as I was working in the door, say out loud, I cannot figure out who these people are. and of course, we do not require IDs to vote in Vermont. Yep. And adding further to complications to this whole mix was a giant sign on the door saying, please wear a mask, strongly recommended, in big bold letters.
Really?
And so I come in there, and they're not asking for ID because it's against the law. They're not supposed to ask for ID. And yet they're openly saying, and this is not prompted by me. I heard this as I was coming in the door, so this is not like I prompted them for any of this. But I heard one of the people who was at the table checking to see who was who say out loud, I just don't know who a bunch of these people are.
Wow. Well, so that's not good.
People who are right.
Okay. Well, thank you,
anyway,
Mike.
I wanted to leave that thought with everyone, but I can make way for new callers.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you calling in.
Thanks
so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, sure. You guys are doing great. I'll keep listening in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So now it's interesting. The Democratic race for lieutenant governor, no one's calling that, but the numbers are almost exactly the same. David Zuckerman right now, 57%. And Thomas Renner, 35%, 36%, but there's a good reason for that. And that's that the towns that haven't, rather the cities that haven't reported, South Burlington, Colchester, Winooski, in other words, Renner territory. Remember, it was the Burlington City Council went like 100% for Renner, I think it was, or was I wrong? Where did they went 100% for one candidate or the other?
Burlington, the city council.
Yeah, who'd they go for?
They went for Renner.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay, so you have the most populous area of the state, no reporting yet. So at least not complete reporting. I think maybe some precincts there. So it isn't surprising that even though the numbers for Zuckerman and Renner are really pretty much like Rogers and Thayer, it's not surprising that they haven't called it yet, because 2 or 3 of those towns come in big for Renner, and that could flip it just like that. So, Paul, what are you seeing?
Well, I'm just checking out. I'm trying to look at some of the House races here. I'm also know that we're expecting a phone call from Stuart Ledbetter at 8:30, correct?
Hope between 8:30 and 9.
Okay, between 8:30 and 9. Okay.
I'm going to give him a jingle and remind him too.
I'm also going to let John Rogers know he's welcome to call.
Yep. That'd be good.
But folks, if you are out there watching us and you are aware of any results that you know of, as of right now, we are taking calls. However, we will boot you off fairly quick if one of our candidates calls in that we're trying to get a hold of. But we are taking calls, 802-793-8479. If you want to join the conversation, we'd love to hear from you and hear what's going on around Vermont. This is an interesting night. This is a little bit of a, this is, Guy and I kind of referred this not maybe as a dress rehearsal for the general election, but we're definitely putting our best foot forward as we go forward here, because this is not easy what we're trying to do, and it sounds like Guy might have some results somewhere. So let's hear for it.
When Stuart calls in, and I just reminded him again, let me tell you the split right now with 2 of 5 towns of the Chittenden Central District reporting. Tanya Byhovsky, 21%. Martine Gulick, 21%. Phil Baruth, 20%. Stuart Ledbetter, 20%. In other words, it's like, 50 votes separating number 1 and number 4. So close. And that's also, I want to talk about, there's another big district, Senate district in Chittenden County, where there was a challenger. See, the thing about that, the district I was talking about, Central, is that those three incumbents, Vyhovsky, Gulick, and Baruth, they ran as a slate. In fact, at the Colchester Parade, we saw the three of them all walking together. Chittenden County Democrats, Senate, all walking together. And I walked out to Phil Baruth. I said, "Hey, Phil, where's Stewart?" He says, "Oh, he's back there somewhere." In other words, he wasn't part of the in crowd, you know, because they decided to run as a slate. And in Chittenden Southeast, you also had three incumbents: Ginny Lyons, longtime senator; Thomas Chittenden, South Burlington; Keisha Ram Hinsdale, another incumbent, and an outsider named Lewis Myers, a physician, lives in Chittenden County, obviously, and works I believe in Rutland, in the hospital there. He's running on healthcare reform. He's saying this healthcare is just, the money's out of control, and we got to do something about this. And so far, it looks like the three incumbents are doing quite well. Ginny Lyons, 30% of the vote; Thomas Chittenden, 26%; Keisha Ram Hinsdale, 25%; and Lewis Myers, 12%. So I would say there, the outsider has got a ways to go before he catches up. Although, again, you know, those big towns, they have not reported yet. So who knows? Yeah. So, but whereas the outsider, Stu Ledbetter, hey, he's neck and neck. Yes.
WCX also called it for Zuck, according to Big C's writes in our comments here, and I also am reading that on social media. They have called it for David Zuckerman. So it sounds like, Guy, our prediction, or at least maybe my prediction, was David Zuckerman versus John Rogers. Even with the tampon hit piece that came out last week, they couldn't get that word spread around quick enough. I think we're going to find out. I don't believe this is quite over yet. I believe, is Chittenden County reporting yet?
Not in any big numbers.
So that's going to take, I think, before we get really done and said. I want to see those results, but usually they're pretty good at getting this stuff sorted out. However, definitely don't just assume that it's over for them. But that will be an interesting race. I'm looking forward to that race. It'll be fun to follow.
You know what's really cool about that one is two real farmers.
That's right.
You know, David Zuckerman, he's, you know, people give him grief for a lot of reasons, people of the more conservative views, but the man is a real farmer. You know, that's a real working farm that he owns and runs. And he does hand out soiled, with, you know, carrots with dirt on them in parades, you know, organic carrots.
He doesn't wash them?
Oh, I don't know. There are some people say that no, but that could just be talking smack. And John Rogers, you know, the same. The guy is a really hardworking farmer, and 3 or 4 other businesses. Like a lot of farmers, he also has worked with his hands in many other ways. And both of them on kind of the outs with the Democratic leadership. It was pretty clear that an awful lot of Democrats in the Senate and in the State House and the party machine wanted him out. And he is not out. He is their incumbent. John Rogers was one of these Democrats who would sit with clenched jaw in committee meetings where it was 4-1 against because he just had some very different and maybe more mainstream views on a lot of things.
This is a pretty funny comment here, Guy.
Go ahead.
Big Siege writes, one would think that Zuck would be the weed farmer. It's kind of a funny point.
Well, he may be, for all we know. Maybe they're both weed farmers.
They could be.
But yes, John Rogers is certainly the first Republican nominee to statewide party to be a marijuana grower.
Yeah. You think that's national?
I don't know.
I wonder. Maybe it is.
Vermont.
That could be a national thing right there.
Be.
Maybe there's an angle there
maybe
for a
we
story.
should ask him. There's one other thing I wanted to really say about John Rogers. Oh, go ahead.
John Rogers just called in. He's actually trying to
for it.
See if we can get him on the line here.
Okay.
John, can you hear us? Oh, boy. Hold on a second here, John. We're trying to get it set up. We can't hear you. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
How are you, John? Thank you very much for calling in.
Happy to do it. I'm doing great.
So what are you hearing so far? We've heard that W6 has called it for your race.
Yes, we heard the AP called it as well.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
You must be kind of excited about this. How are you feeling right now?
Very pleased. We were pretty sure that we were going to come out on top, but politics is a fickle business, so we're real happy to see the results.
Well, congratulations again, and so it's sounding like, from what we're also hearing from WCAX, is that you will be facing David Zuckerman in a primary. And what are your thoughts on that?
I'm ready. You know, I think our message is resonating. Excuse me, with Vermonters, and you know, David's had years to prove himself, and from what I've seen, he hasn't really been speaking out against the policies that are hurting regular Vermonters, and so I think the average Vermonter is going to be ready for a change.
Well, that's going to be certainly an interesting race. I'm sure we're going to be following it here at Vermont Daily Chronicle. If you were to take a look at Zuckerman as you're heading into now the general election, and this is what we've heard so far, folks. You know, this isn't set in stone as of right now, but it's seeming that way. If you were to take a look at Zuckerman, what are some of the things that you would say, okay, well, I could actually do that better as lieutenant governor? What do you think Vermont actually needs in a lieutenant governor?
Yeah, well, I think I want to transform that office to something that it's not been. I want to be able to bring average and working class Vermonters' voice to the State House, because I think they've been forgotten. I think the lobbyists that are representing wealthy people and wealthy businesses, and the legislature is driving the cost of living up so much that it's becoming an area that regular people can't afford to live in. And so that's one of the things I want to do. But I also want to be able to bring inform the electorate about what's going on in the State House and make sure they understand how their legislators are voting and how the bills are going to affect them, especially in the pocketbook.
Well, absolutely. I think that's very, very important thoughts. And I do have some comments here, just real quick. Big Siege writes, Zuckerman and Rogers should submit a competing produce to a fair this summer. That could be kind of a fun way to square off as Vermont farmers, huh?
Yeah.
Well, without giving too much of your strategy away, what's your path to victory?
My path to victory is simply getting out and talking with Vermonters, because the more people that hear my message, the more people will join our team, and that's how we're going to win. Well,
that's incredible. Guy, do you have anything you want to add? I'm sure you must have some questions for John.
We were just speculating, John. Is it possible that you were the first Republican statewide nominee in the country to be a marijuana farmer?
That's a good one, Guy. That very well could be.
It's funny.
If I win the seat, I may be the only lieutenant governor in the country that is a marijuana farmer. That would be an interesting badge.
I was actually sort of wondering whether Zuckerman is. He certainly he used to tell me, well, maybe I'll ask for a license. So it could be that he already is. I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Well, we have a live guest that's joining us right now.
All right.
We have John Rogers on the line, just so you're aware, Kenny. We have Kenny Goslant here.
Hey, Kenny.
I don't know if you can hear him, but you can try these headphones on and see if they work out for you.
So, everyone, this is the representative from Northfield. How many terms have you served now, Ken?
3.
Okay, great. You've probably known Paul since he was 10 years old, I'm guessing.
Quite a long time.
Yeah.
Being Beam family's been around here for a long time.
That's right.
Guys, before we get into that, I just want to say quickly, John, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, thanks for the opportunity. Thank you to all the voters who went out there and supported us, and we look forward to meeting more Vermonters.
Well, thanks so much, and we wish you luck this coming general election this November, and we're going to be following that race closely, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too. So, Kenny Goslant, what do you make of that? John Rogers, your lieutenant governor nominee.
That's great news. Congratulations to him. I really haven't got too many updates of what's really going on out there. I don't know what's going on with Berlin yet. I know we got the votes on the Republican side in Northfield, but from what I hear, it's kind of a small turnout, which is...
Yes, I'm a JP in Berlin, and definitely small turnout.
Which is very, very surprising to me. In what I've learned in this political environment, in let's call it 7 years now, because you start a year ahead of time, and you keep learning as you go along. But I honestly, from what I've heard so far, I cannot make any sense of it.
Now, Kenny, I just want to ask you quickly. I know you were talking about maybe a write-in campaign on the Democratic end. Is that something that you're working on today, or is that?
Yeah, I put out on my social media. I didn't put out too much. Just that I have a lot of people that are Democrats, and I appreciate it, and I know they support me, and it was like just a way of putting stuff out there that you only take one ticket in August, and I'm not a big fan of that either. But
what do you mean, like the idea that you can just take whatever primary and vote in whichever primary you want?
Yeah, I mean, there's Democrats I vote for. I'm not a straight 100% down the line Republican. I'm going to vote for the person that I think is best suited to do the job and help move Vermont forward. I mean, it's really not complicated, but I've never really considered myself a real
partisan.
Politician.
Sure.
I mean, it's still 6 years in the State House, and I'm still learning, and Guy knows that. And I mean, since you've been around, I think you see how it goes. I mean, most of my stuff is done, for lack of better words, from kind of behind the scenes. I don't look for a spotlight. I don't do interviews. I appreciate you guys. I mean, you're in Northfield.
Yeah,
it's great you guys are here. It's great you're doing this, and I thought I'd stop down and show my appreciation.
Well, we appreciate it very much.
And
so Kenny has had the good, or maybe not always good fortune, to sit on the House Judiciary Committee, which is where has been a real hotbed of a lot of the most sort of progressive bills. And you are one of the strong voices on that committee saying, wait a minute, we need some more common sense solutions here to criminal law, among other things. And I remember, Ken, your first few months, you talk about deer in the headlights. I was like, what is going on in this place? What are these people trying to do? And you were just sort of, and by the time your second term, really your second year rolled around, and then your second term, you clearly had your feet more on the ground, and you knew kind of more like what your role was, which was, among other things, to when someone would put forth an idea that was more coming from an progressive ideological point of view, you would say, wait a minute, how is that really going to affect life now in Vermont, quality of life in Vermont? That's, for those of you who don't know, I have been a lobbyist, and I've been reporting in the State House for 6 or 7 years now, and it's been interesting watching you kind of develop as a legislator.
I appreciate that. I had no idea what I was getting into.
That was clear.
I walked in there. I've always I've been friends with the governor since 2001. I've always admired him.
Yeah.
I take great pride in working with the administration that he puts forward as much as I possibly can. I think they do a fabulous job, and it's a pleasure. It's an honor to work with people like that, and also with Governor Scott. I mean, he common sense, regular type of guy. I mean, we all know you see him out around town or anything, you'd never know he was a governor. It's pretty neat.
So your district is a 2-seat district. I only see one name there. Ann Donahue has been in that seat for years. Is she not running, or what's the deal there?
No, she's running. She's running as an independent. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
You didn't know this guy?
I did not know that.
Oh, I thought I had told you that at some point.
Oh, I'm sure you probably did.
Maybe not. Who knows?
Huh. Okay. That's very interesting. Has she stated on the record, this is why I'm running as an independent? Is that anything you guys can speak to? Or?
That's something I don't know. Can you speak to that? I can't.
She can talk about it. I think she's put it out there why she's doing what she's doing, and I think everybody you need to be true to yourself in this. This is serious stuff. I mean, I'm elected by Berlin and Northfield residents, right? But when I'm in the House chamber, there's 150 of us, well, hopefully there is, right? But when I'm voting, I'm not voting for Northfield and Berlin. I mean, I have them in the back of my mind, obviously, but I'm one of 150 people that I am trying to vote and do as best I can for Vermont. Now, we all know with this supermajority and all that stuff, we all know where that's going to go. My work is done in House Judiciary,
yes,
or in the hallways. You see me all the time working, talking to different people, and they know what's going on and that stuff. But it's like they have a job to do. You have to respect it, whether you like it or not. They're going to stick together. They're going to do what they think is right. And maybe if the Republican side was there doing that, maybe they do the same thing. I don't know.
They did. When I can actually remember back in the days of yore when there was a Republican House Speaker, and yes, they were expected to kind of hang together. Maybe not quite as strongly as the Democrats do. Maybe they have a somewhat twist arms a little bit more. But yeah, that was there. Huh. Well.
So you don't know the results yet of your race, then?
I don't have a clue.
Well, he had 100% of the votes when I was just checking. This is Washington 1, right?
Yeah.
Let me read it. Ken Goslant, 266 votes, 65.68%, and 8 write-in votes, and blank votes 131. So obviously you will be the Republican nominee. Let's see. Are you saying that's as a question?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, he's wondering if he can call in.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Sure. I'll just let him know that he is welcome to call in. I'm not hearing any results from Elizabeth Brown yet in her race up in Waterbury.
This was the
Washington Chittenden.
That's Chittenden. Washington Chittenden is what that's called, right?
I believe so.
Washington Chittenden. There's that. And hold on. Democratic. This is very interesting. With only one of 3 towns reporting.
Waterbury, right?
It does not say which one. With only one of 3 towns reporting, Teresa Wood, 32%. Elizabeth Brown, 27%. Tom Stevens, 25%. So in the early running, one of 3 towns, and that is with Bolton. Bolton has reported.
Okay.
If I have that correctly, yes. then the big towns in that district, no, have not reported yet. And that, of course, is Waterbury Center. I don't know exactly how that district is. Basically, it's Waterbury.
So you say 3 out of, I'm not sure, I just want to double check here. You have 3 out of 5 towns, that's what I'm seeing, have reported?
I'm seeing only 1 out of 3.
Okay, well, what I'm seeing right now is you have Teresa Wood in first place with 32%, and Elizabeth Brown is in second place with 26%.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what you're seeing?
Yes.
Okay, I have 3 out of 5, but...
Where are you getting that?
Same place you.
Mine says towns reporting 1/3. But whatever.
I don't know.
Maybe it hasn't refreshed or something. Probably that was it.
I've also seen the direct results from Waterbury too. I've had them sent to me, so I have no idea what's going on here. But
okay. But anyway, clearly, tell us about Elizabeth Brown.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, she is running in the Democratic primary, obviously, for that seat in the House seat of Washington County, Chittenden County, which I believe is Bolton, Waterbury, Buell's Gore, Huntington. I think I'm missing one other town. But anyway, so she's running against Teresa Wood and Tom Stevens, who are both incumbents. They've been in the legislature now for, I don't know, at least more than 2 terms apiece, because considering they do have leadership and they are chairs of committees. I don't know exactly which chairs. I think maybe Stevens is transportation.
Housing.
Do you know, Kenny?
And general and housing.
Yeah. Okay.
And Wood is human
services.
Yes.
Okay.
Human services.
Okay. So anyway, Elizabeth, from what I have heard, she ran on a platform of "Do you want more of the same?" Essentially, I think property tax.
Did a lot of advertising on WDEV, I know.
She did, and I think that there was a lot of the property tax increase that was kind of a big thing that she was standing against. But I, as we know right now, we don't know where it stands for her. It seems like it's a very close race, and we're going to be following that here as the night goes on. Guy, what time do you think we will have results for people?
You never know. I mean, Colchester and Burlington have been known to be like, 12, 1. I don't know about you, but I'm not staying up that late.
No, I don't plan on
it. That's my bedtime. But, as the night goes on, we get more and more. It's generally a lot of the big Chittenden County towns come in late, and that does sort of skew the statewide. However, it does sort of look like, unless something not bizarre, but very strongly for Renner happens in Chittenden County, it does sort of look like Zuckerman's headed for another general election.
Kenny, any thoughts on that?
No, I let the voters speak. If they're happy with the current lieutenant governor, and that's the way it is. It's like, I think it's with all of us. I mean, it's like, do the best you can, and you try to resonate with as many people as you can, and as you know, I'm local. I'm out all the time. I'm talking to constituents all the time and stuff, and getting their ideas and trying to put forth what I think is going on and what's needed. And a lot of times they don't understand it, and I can certainly understand that because I, again, had no idea. And that's the job that you do, and that's the way it is.
Well, I think you spoke to that very well. I'm only picking on you a little bit, asking if you have any thoughts on that, because I figured that would kind of be what your thoughts were. Yeah. It's the people pick who they pick, and that's kind of what we're probably seeing around some of the primaries thus far. It looks like I have some.
Speaking of people picking who they pick.
Sure.
Say that 5 times.
People.
So up in Grand Isle County, the people are picking Andy Julo race for state senate. Now, the reason that's not as close as it sounds is that's the Colchester/Grand Isle district that Dick Mazza of Colchester held for so many years. The reason he held it for so many years, apart from the fact that he was a terrific senator, is that Colchester has a lot more voters than all of Grand Isle County does. So Andy Julo, who was appointed to fill Dick Mazza's seat after Dick resigned and shortly before his death, has 85% of the votes. The Colchester Democratic candidate, Julie Hulbert, has 12%. So if Colchester weren't counted, and it's not in yet, Andy Julo would be the runaway winner. However, Colchester's not in yet, and we shall see whether that's enough to skew that. And then what's really interesting about that race for me is whoever wins, Hulbert or Julo, will be facing Pat Brennan of Colchester, Republican, who is almost indistinguishable from Dick Mazza on almost any policy sense. Both sort of social, in the middle, fiscal conservatives. Both operated grocery stores in Mallets Bay. They were both terrific advertisers for the Colchester Chronicle when I had my newspaper there, and I got to know them both very well. I used to tell Dick Mazza that when I was 5 years old, I walked into his store and I stole his penny candy, and years later I sold him advertising. Anyway, the point being, Pat Brennan is Republican, but almost a clone in every other way of Dick Mazza, and he's kind of Colchester's definitely better known than Julie Hulbert is. So that is going to be a really interesting race. And I looked this year, Kenny, when I saw the veto override, the one place that it happened, it was in the Senate. The Senate, I think it was on, I forget what it was campaign finance or something like that. And whereas in the House, it looks like right now, barring a real comeback, the Dems and the Progs have got a pretty good lead. But 3 or 4 Senate seats, Pat Brennan maybe, Scott Beck in Caledonia County, maybe Sam Douglas, if he holds on to his lead in Orleans County. And you think, wow, even down in, maybe it's unthinkable, but in Bennington County, both of the incumbents are not running again. Joe Gervais will be running down there. That might be pretty tough, the Republicans, to pull that out. But got to kind of wonder, is depending on how things go in November, could we be looking at at least a veto support for the governor out of the Senate? You got any thoughts about that?
Well, I sure hope so. It's better balance for all of Vermont,
Yeah.
and we need that. And if it takes the Senate to do that, so be it. I think the governor. I've supported the governor on every veto this session except the what I call the B one.
Neonicotinoids.
Yeah, that
Right.
I can't even pronounce it. Yeah.
Pollinators. Yeah, who can?
So that was a tough one, but I did what I thought was right, and that's what I do. And it bothered me to vote against them because that's not what I like doing. But I just thought that one there, maybe if it turns out that it was wrong, maybe we can reverse it if I am reelected back for a fourth term. We'll see how it goes. The one thing about the governor and the whole administration is they're not afraid to go and try something different, and it's common sense. And the thing that I really look up to them about is I don't see a lot of politics, and maybe I'm naive with it, but I just don't. And I have a lot of respect for that. And so anyway,
it's fairly transparent. I would say from what I've seen. I mean, Guy, maybe you can speak to that a little more, but I mean, you kind of know where they stand on most things, and they make it pretty clear.
It's common sense. It's business. It's doing the right thing. I mean, it's like just do the right thing and try to help out as much as you can. And I think any of us that are in an elected office, I mean, that's our job. That's what we're elected to do, and hopefully I'm doing it. I do want to say I really appreciate people that came out and voted today. I wish more were doing it. It is fascinating to me and quite frankly very upsetting the amount of people that do not vote. And this is their life, their future, and all this stuff. And it's like they think their vote doesn't matter, and it does. And somehow or another, we all need to get that voice, that opinion out there that it counts. It's your future, and it's all this money that's being spent and all this stuff and not taking care of certain. We can do a lot better in Vermont than what we're doing. We just need to help to do it. And if we can get enough for a veto override, to sustain a veto override in the Senate, I think that's going to make Vermont a lot better because it's going to force people to work together, and that's what needs to be done. It needs to be forced.
Yeah, Jerry Zeller wrote earlier in the show. He wrote, "It's disheartening that people are so lazy not to go out and vote." And I'm not sure that's the characterization you maybe would use. However, it is quite concerning considering all the problems that we've been talking about since the middle of February. How could it be that people aren't affected enough to know that this is something that they can do to stop this from happening? I just think people largely are, I don't know about being lazy, but maybe they're uneducated on why the primaries matter and what that would look like going into the general.
Well, in this race, I'm going to, devil's advocate here. In this race, I live in Berlin. No real choice there. There's no real primary that I would likely to be involved in, except for the lieutenant governor one. And that one, I had some fairly strong feelings about it, and I voted my way. But I think a lot of people would say, well, let's see, I don't really know much about Greg Thayer. Don't know much about John Rogers. It's an awfully nice day, and actually we were planning on going on vacation, and
yeah,
good day to be in the boat.
We do have absentee ballots, so
that assumes a certain level of interest and engagement. Yeah, I've got to hope that the general election, that the same people who are saying, why bother? Well, this one, it is a presidential. And the stark choice at every level. Like, boy, you better believe I'm going to be at that general election, because then I've got some choices for the House. I know this great guy down in Northfield, in the Berlin Northfield district, who's running. And also speaking of the Washington Senate district. And Don Koch is the son of former Representative Tom Koch. He is running. And there's also a kind of a write-in draft program. The candidates aren't saying too much about it, the potential candidates, but there are people asking, they were seeking write-ins for Rob Roper, who lives in Stowe, and Stowe was actually part of Washington County's district, go figure.
That's right.
And Michael Deering, from Berry City, a city councilor, and both of them, I guess the idea was if they were drafted, they wouldn't mind if people were trying to draft them. And I think there's going to be a meeting in a day or two where the write-ins not only for the Washington County Senate District, but really all over the state, and we may be looking at a general election ballot that suddenly has a lot more people on it in both parties.
Yeah, we do have a reply. Jacob Preston, who's actually out there running the cream machine, he writes, nationwide day off for local and national elections at a minimum a half a day off. You want to get people out there, make it part of their, their daily. I mean, people don't think about this stuff a lot of the time because they're doing, like you say, they're going on vacation, they got their daily routines, maybe they're at work, whatever it is. You got to somehow break the cycle, break the whatever it is that's keeping them from getting there. And I couldn't agree more, Jake. I've always thought that, especially the general election, I've always thought should be a day off. But I don't know. Kenny, would you disagree with that? You're like, another day off? Oh, my goodness. Oh.
All I'm going to say about that is this is serious business.
That's right.
It's an amazing amount of money that gets spent in Montpelier, whether you agree with it or not.
That's the truth.
So that alone, with the increase in property tax of 14%, and in other areas more or maybe a little less, and using some ARPA funds and all that stuff, you would think that people would be going and paying a lot more attention to where their money, their hard-earned money, is being spent by 180 people in Montpelier.
Why do you think that they're not?
I don't know.
I don't either. That's I think we sit here every single time. Like, we did this for the town meeting day elections, and I remember in 2022 watching the results as they came in, just thinking the same exact thing. How could it possibly be that people are, what are they doing? Like, how are they not paying attention to this at all? But I guess that's just us. We're all political guys. That's what we're interested in. But
well, I was never, I had no interest in being a politician, and hopefully I'm still not that bad of one. But the point of the matter is, you have to have an interest. It's your future. It's your kids' future. It's your grandkids' future. It's what America was built on. And I just think that's, critical. It's basic 101 stuff. I mean, I was so blessed today. I had two of my granddaughters show up from New Hampshire, and they've got I'm known as grumpy, by the way, with my grandkids.
No.
No way.
And
he's known in that way in the State House too. Just so you know.
So it's the only way to have fun there. But
it's kind of true.
But, they showed up there and they went, vote for Grumpy today. That's just cute. That kind of makes
cool.
it all worthwhile. So
that's cool.
Yeah, well, and that's just talk about the engagement at a young age, getting people to pay attention. This is part of the legacy here of the country, folks. Let's participate.
Well, it's also a big reminder. Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And it's their future. And a lot of times, when my voting record definitely shows I'm a Republican, but a supermajority, it's one way or it's no way.
Yeah.
And again, you're doing all your work before it gets to the House floor, and you're trying to make a bill as good as you possibly can, knowing what's going to happen. And the governor showed that many times at the end of the year. It's like, my hands are tied. I've done everything I can.
So we have another race that I think maybe we can call. It's the Grand Isle Democrat Senate race. And that's that Andy Julo has 49% of the vote. Julie Hubbard of Colchester has 45% of the vote. So the Grand Isle County resident is leading that one, and the only town that isn't reporting is, if I haven't missed my guess here, is Alberg, which is in Grand Isle County. So as far away from Colchester, where Julie Hubbard lives, as you can get. So it looks like Pat Brennan will be squaring off against quasi-incumbent Andy Julo, who was appointed to fill the seat in November. Will not be the fellow Colchester resident Julie Hubbard, unless this Alberg decides it's going to go huge for the Colchester candidate, which is probably unlikely. So we have again the races are taking shape here.
It looks like, Guy, I don't know if we can call it yet with Sam Douglas race. It appears that he is taking the lead. He is at 49% with Amy Conrad Bellavance with 41%. So he's taking the front there, it appears.
With 17 of 20. Let's see. Republican Sam Douglas 49.4, Amy Conrad Bellavance 41.8. 17 of 20 towns reporting. let's see if there are any big towns that have not reported yet. For example, if Newport or something. You know what I don't see there yet? I do not see Newport City. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that is where Conrad Bellavance is from. And in any event, it's a large voting community. So that one is, although that's 8 points though, that's quite a bit.
Here's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Randy Brock's race up in Franklin County. He is ahead with
well,
11.
that's a 2-seat district.
Oh, okay. So then that's never mind. It's not that interesting. Yeah. Never mind, folks. I tried.
It's not a primary. Let's see.
Looks like J.T. Dodge and Scott Beck. Is that also a 2-seat district?
No, that's one.
Okay, so Scott Beck has taken that one overwhelmingly. 79% of the vote, with 11 out of 12 towns reporting.
Yep. That I think is not a huge surprise.
No, I don't think it is either.
Yeah. JT is a great guy and a strong. Well, there's no one who hates a carbon tax more than JT Dodge. But Scott was really you might say, the House's leading voice this year, opposing all of these school taxes. At one point it was going to be about 20% school taxes, and so he really developed a voice for that, which he'd really had for quite a while. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Who he will be up against also, that has been established in the Democrat race. That is Amanda Cochran has a 84% to 9% lead over Sean Hallesley. She is a not terribly well-known nonprofit executive. And so that's a race that it's not crazy talk to think that Scott Beck could pick that up. In fact, I think if I were a betting person, I might go for him at this point.
So you're not a betting person, is what you're saying?
Not on this, and generally not. But now the Chittenden Central one, again, still really close. That's the one with Stuart Ledbetter taking on the slate of 3 incumbents: Phil Baruth, Martine Gulick, Tanya Vyhovsky. Very interesting thing here, and with only 2 of 5 towns reporting. Essex and Winooski have reported. Essex is Vyhovsky's hometown, so it's no great surprise that she would be ahead there. So they will be waiting on, what are the 5 other towns there? Let's see. I'm blanking on it right now, but there are 3 left there, and Phil Baruth is the Senate pro tem, the head of the Vermont Senate. Right now there are 12 votes separating him and Stu Ledbetter. So depending on kind of how it all goes.
Good write-in results for Michael Booten and Michael Deering and Rob Roper. Michael Booten is, I believe, trying to get on the Barrie ballot.
Barrie City.
House,
that's correct.
House seat. And then you have Mike Deering and Rob Roper, who are both the 2 the write-in candidates to get on the Republican primary. It's seeming like they will be on the ballot. I hope nobody wrote me in, because I'm not doing it.
You never know. You and Mickey Mouse probably got a couple votes, Paul.
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry.
No, I voted for Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I voted for Mike Deering and Rob Roper, so would love to have them. Kenny, what about you? You have anything you know? What about Northfield? You haven't heard?
I really don't know much.
Kenny's mic isn't on. Sorry.
I really don't know much at all. I'm going to go home and I'm going to see what's going on and get some results. I haven't heard. Is there any results from Berlin yet at all with myself?
Let's find out. Let's see. Chittenden.
Seeing Stuart.
Wait. This is Washington 1. House. Washington 1. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
And Democratic and contest details. 388 votes in from Berlin, and I'm reading no votes in yet from Northfield. Does that make sense?
I'm surprised.
Yeah. I'll check and make sure that the other party says that, but no, this is really weird. In the Republican primary, it has Berlin, Ken Goslant, 107. Others, this is the Republican primary. Others, 139. So one would suspect Ann Donohue's gotten a bit of a write-in vote there.
Where's Stuart Ledbetter?
He lives in Winooski.
Okay. That's why I'm not able to find him.
Yeah. And let's see. But yeah, so you have.
I'm getting some text messages that somewhere out there's quicker results coming in than what you're getting somewhere. I have no idea where. And the other thing, I'm just gonna shout out that I'm getting a lot of text messages from some of my Democrat friends, and that's really, really important to me, and I really appreciate them. So we'll see what happens in November, and appreciate everybody that came out to vote, and hopefully the people that didn't vote are learning something from this, and they do vote in November, because it's their future, and we'll see what happens. And I appreciate your time, guys. And
well, thanks for
anything
coming
else,
in,
let me know.
You bet.
Thank you, Kenny.
Okay. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
I'm seeing now Stuart Ledbetter, the results for Senate, Chittenden Central. It's looking like he's just behind Phil Baruth with 865 votes. Phil Baruth's got 873 with 18 out of 25 towns reporting. That is going to be really quick, and not a quick one. This could be a late one. That being said, I'm seeing here that WCAX, and Big C's wrote this in and has been so far verifiably reliable, wrote WCAX has Stuart done for. They're saying that he might be done. Hasn't called Central Chittenden either. Yeah, but it looks like it's over. So we'll see what's going to.
Since there's only 5 votes separating him and Phil Baruth, I don't know how they can make that call.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's very, very close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kenny. Have a good one. Now,
I will say that his hometown, or where he lives, is Winooski. He's from Manchester. So Winooski's in. So in that sense, okay. And if you expect that he's going to get beaten in Burlington, which is again not crazy. Phil Baruth's from Burlington, so you could see it. But boy, that's awfully close.
So we're still waiting on the final results for the Washington Chittenden House seat, which was a contested primary. It's seeming like there's maybe one town that still hasn't reported, and I think it might be Huntington that is not reported. That's what I'm seeing.
That's the one with Elizabeth Brown?
That's one with Elizabeth Brown. It looks like Buell's Gore is technically part of Huntington. So
Buell's Gore.
That's a small.
Wow.
I knew I was right about that. So it still has not reported for Huntington. So we're still waiting on the results there. But that is a close contested primary once again.
And she's right now 30 votes behind Tom Stevens. That's what I'm looking at here, with 2 or 3 towns reporting. So that I don't know where that's going to end up.
Well, Guy, what about us? Where are we going to end up? I'm happy to keep going.
You know what? I was just warning that myself, and I think we should shoot for a 9:30 wrap-up.
Sure.
And what we'll do is we're going to go over, just read off the results, and I'll just sort of knock them down one at a time. For governor, Democratic primary. DEI advocate Esther Charleston clearly has won, 49% compared to Underhill climate change activist Peter Duval with 19%. So the most popular governor in the nation, Republican Phil Scott, will have another perhaps somewhat sacrificial lamb token Democrat to run against, which in Vermont just sounds really weird, but hey, that's how it rolls. So, lieutenant governor, we have, of course, David Zuckerman now with 57%, including a lot of Chittenden County towns, compared to Thomas Renner with 36%. So clearly, David Zuckerman resoundingly defeating Democratic challenger Thomas Renner, despite having endorsements of many state senators, Democratic state senators, against him, and most of the Democratic money going to Renner. And in probably the race of most interest in Vermont among the Chronicle readers is John Rogers and Greg Thayer for lieutenant governor. John Rogers 56% compared to Greg Thayer's 35%. And that clearly that's a win for John Rogers, the former Democrat, Blue Dog Democrat, but now really more of a Phil Scott Republican. Those are the statewide primaries. In the Senate races, we will start with Addison County Republican. Steve Heffernan and Lando Cochran will be the nominees for that 2-seat district. And for the Democrats in Addison County, it looks like Ruth Hardy and Chris Bray are likely to have retained their Democratic nominations, those two incumbents. Caleb Elder is trailing Chris Bray by about 330 votes. Not to say that couldn't be made up, but 20 of 25 towns reporting, looking pretty good for the two incumbents, Ruth Hardy and Chris Bray. In Caledonia County, that was a no-doubter. Amanda Cochran for the Democrats, Scott Beck for the Republicans by 8-1 margins. The race that continues very close here is by right now 5 votes, with 3 of 5 towns reporting. Tanya Vyhovsky first, Martin Gulick second, Phil Baruth third, Stuart Ledbetter in this 3-chair game of musical chairs at the moment is the odd man out by 5 votes, trailing Phil Baruth by 5 votes. An awful lot could happen there. In the Chittenden Southeast, incumbents Ginny Lyons, Tom Chittenden, and Keisha Ram Hinsdale sailing to the Democratic renominations. In Grand Isle, Andy Julo has defeated Julie Hulberd, barring some real miracle, for the Democratic race, setting up a challenge against Pat Brennan, Republican Pat Brennan. In Orleans County, you have, let's see what the latest on that is now, Paul. Yeah, that's about the same. Sam Douglas, 49%. Amy Ballavance, 42%. Looking, again, unless Newport City comes in big for Amy Conrad Ballavance, which is not a crazy idea. It could. It looks like Sam Douglas will likely be facing Catherine Sims in November. And let's see, Rutland County, Washington, we all know about. Oh, let's conclude with Windsor. Okay. Windsor, it's looking like Jack Williams, Andrea Murray, and Jonathan Gleason are likely to be the Windsor County Republican Senate nominees in that 3-seat district. And that extremely blue district. And right now, Rebecca White, Allison Clarkson, and Joe Major are absolutely the three leading vote getters and the nominees for the Democratic Party. And that is it for the major Senate races. I just want to take one quick look at a couple of the House races. Let's see. Well, we're just going to have to hold on those.
What I was going to say is I think it's reached the point in the night where, for whatever reason, some of these towns just aren't reporting.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on, of course, the Chittenden County House seat. I'm still not seeing the final results there. But it is interesting to me how some of these races can be decided.
Yeah. I will say in the Addison. The Addison race, Starksboro, Moncton, up in the mountains. Shanine Hill is leading, and Renee McGinnis look like they're going to be the Republicans, and Mari Cordes, the incumbent, will be back again as a Democrat.
Okay.
So it's 9:31, probably good a time as any to call it a wrap. This has been fun, good training for you and I, Paul, for the big one.
That's right.
Coming up in November 5th.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
And just folks, if anyone is still listening out there, we intend to spend these 85 days well, providing coverage for this general election, so people really know what's at stake. And we can't make people read or watch, but we can do our best to keep people informed, and that's exactly what we plan to do. Paul, thank you very much. Any last word for you?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone out there who's viewing. We really appreciate you guys. You guys are what this is all about ultimately, and you're what supports us. You're what makes this happen. Why we're still sitting around here talking. Yeah. You guys are still out there listening. So I hope that we provided some good information, some tangible information that you can go to bed with and say, man, I know what's going on in Vermont. I know what's going on. That being said, we do really appreciate your support. Any way you can support us, one of the easiest ways you can do that is click to subscribe. We have finally got over to 500 subscribers, which we are so excited about. So thank you so much to everyone who helped make that happen. And if you guys wouldn't mind sharing the stream, liking the stream, sending it to your grandma, whatever you have to do to get the word out there about what we've been doing here at Vermont Daily Chronicle and Creamy Cash, we'd greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Guy, do you have anything else you want to say?
Thank you, Paul, and tune in to Vermont Daily Chronicle tomorrow morning for